Reading is something you typically don't think of when it comes to football, but in reality, football players are much brighter than you think. Along with keeping their bodies in significantly better shape than all of us, they have to remember a ton of essential rules in the back of their head in order just to play the game. In the modern age of the NFL, the rulebook has 82 pages with 19 rules. Each rule is broken up into 3 parts, which are the rules, the section, the articles, and they are each increasing in depthness as you go from section to article. For example, rule number 11 focuses on all scoring aspects of the game and is broken down into 6 individual sections. Section 4 of this rule is the field goal section, and preceding are the articles. For example, we would choose Section 1, which is the success of a field goal. Ultimately, in the end, if you put all this together, it would look like Rule number 11, Section 4, Article 1. Embedded in this rule is a long list of scenarios that the referees must memorize in order to know what the proper call should be. Along with this, every referee and coach and the majority of the athletes must know the rules to a full extent in order to keep up mentally with everyone else. Another huge piece of textual evidence incorporated into football is the playbook. The playbook is one of the most confusing parts of the whole entire game. To some it's second nature, but to the average person it's incredibly foreign. According to Dr. David Reddish, a professor in the Department of Neuroscience at the University of Minnesota, playing football and play calling is like trying to learn a musical instrument that is scheming against you. Being able to see the play on paper and translate it onto the field is one of the hardest things someone can do. This is why you see the coaches making the big bucks. As you can see in this picture, the play sheet consists of many random phrases along with markings by the coach to indicate which play has been used and which has been successful and which has not. But this is only a glimpse into what coaches can really do.
Whether it's the shape of the ball, tackles, or punting, football revolves around science and math. First off, the shape of a football. The shape of a football is extremely important because it allows players to throw the ball in a direct path over long distances with a tight spiral. The tighter the spiral, the better control the quarterback has. A football shape comes from an ellipse rotated along its long axis from one end to another, resulting with a prolate spheroid. The prolate spheroid allows the ball to spiral using the gyroscopic effect. This helps maintain control and trajectory with a constant spin. The constant spiraling also helps the ball move because it reduces drag and friction in the air. A throw with any wobble in it causes friction and the ball will not go as far or as accurately. Another aspect of football that revolves around science and math are tackles. Tackles are based on Newton's first law of motion. That is, an object will remain at rest or in uniform motion in a straight line unless acted upon by an external force. In football, when one player uses their unbalanced force against another player, it slows down or changes the opponent's direction. For example, a running back is on a set path and will only be changed by a defensive player's unbalanced force. In football, the running back's mass is also important for his inertia or resistance to change, because the more force he exerts, the more force it is needed to stop him. The ability to punt a football is not just based on hard work and practice, but science. A football is punted with extreme force from a punter's leg and turns the football into a projectile. This projectile follows a parabolic arc or parabola. The velocity of the ball during its journey is affected by 2 things: a horizontal component, its speed along the ground, and a vertical component, its speed moving vertically. These components are represented by vectors or arrows. Vectors show the physical quantities of speed and direction. The greater the speed, the longer the velocity vector. As gravity acts on the football, the vertical velocity vector gets smaller. Gravity acts on the ball the entire time and eventually stops it from rising. This is the peak of its path, and it has no up and down speed at all, so it's 0. The punter's goal is to have the football hang up there as long as possible. On its way down, gravity still acts on it, and its speed increases, and the vertical vector points downward, and the horizontal vector is still the same.
The NFL was founded on August 20th in Canton, Ohio, as the American Professional Football Association. It started with 14 teams. The first game was played between the Dayton Triangles and the Columbus Panhandles on October 3rd, 1920, in front of 4,000 people. Over the first few years of the league, it grew larger, and the teams increased to 22 by 1926, before dropping back to 12 a year later. In 1932, the first playoffs were held between 8 teams. The first NFL championship was then held in 1934, and the Bears won. The Super Bowl era began in 1967 between the Packers and Chiefs. In 1970, the AFL-NFL merged, forming today's league. The NFL players can impact society by their plays and style. For example, on November 23, 2015, in a game versus the Cowboys, Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham made a one-handed catch that would change the way kids would practice forever. Across all levels of football, everyone started practicing one-handed catches. NFL players also influence culture with touchdown celebrations such as Cam Newton's dab or Superman Cam. The NFL as a whole also runs programs such as Crucial Catch and Salute to Service to raise money and awareness for cancer research and veterans.
Artistic creation and analysis is inquiry through the creation, performance, or analysis of works of theater, art, literature, music, sculpture, or other generative activity. Many people may wonder how football can possibly relate to this mode of inquiry. However, football itself is an art. It is more than big, muscular guys running around and hitting each other. In fact, it is about the execution and creativity of the team. Each play can be effective or ineffective against certain tactics or coverages, so the coaches and players must have high football IQ in order to make the right call and be in position to make the play. Teams also commonly use trick plays to fool the defense, which is where coaches can get very creative. If they know they need a certain amount of yards and only have one play to do it, they want to do something the defense isn't expecting. For instance, there are plays such as the hook and ladder, where a receiver runs a hook route, catches the ball, and tosses it to another player that will try and score. Another play would be the flea flicker, where the quarterback hands the ball off to the running back, who then pitches it back to the quarterback for a pass. One of the greatest trick plays of all time, the Philly Special, was utilized on the game's biggest stage by the Eagles to beat the Patriots. All of these maneuvers require creativity and plan to execute. Moving on from the game itself, there are countless statues made for legends that played, coached, or own a team. There are even some statues of the team's mascots outside the stadiums. For example, there's a 14-foot statue of Vince Lombardi, one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, outside of Lambeau Field. By creating this statue, Julie Rotblatt Amory was also able to keep Lombardi's message of working hard and believing in yourself alive. The statue was revealed in 2003, and many fans take pictures with it to this day. Don Shula, the esteemed Dolphins head coach, has a statue outside of Sun Life Stadium that was revealed in 2010. The 11-foot statue sculpture is titled A Perfect Moment in Time, as it captured Shula being hoisted up by two players after completing a perfect season by winning the Super Bowl. There are multitudes of other statues, including ones of Ray Lewis, Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, and Pat Tillman. Clearly, the NFL greats inspire creativity in others. In addition, the logos and uniforms that the teams wear every week are a form of artistic expression. There are 32 NFL teams, an entire Canadian Football League, and 130 D1 college teams. Each one has a unique logo, name, and uniform design that is a part of their team brand. Teams constantly update their uniforms, and in 2016, the NFL debuted Color Rush jerseys, in which teams wore only one of their colors. This version of the jersey has become a fan favorite and has increased jersey sales. Each team also has an alternate or throwback uniform, making it so that they all have at least 4 possible things to wear on Sunday. With all these options, it is critical that each team be original and creative when making something new, while also maintaining the team's signature look. Players also wear colorful cleats, watches, and fun socks during games. Every team has a signature style, and the players are allowed to express their own creativity and stylistic preferences. All in all, football has many creative elements, making it more than just a game.